Let's go. We are starting our last year on Perek Yud Zayin, which happens to be the last year of this whole section of Tanya, because chapter Yud Ches, chapter 18, begins a whole new story. So this has been the discussion of the longer way, and this is the last little piece here. And what we said in yesterday's class, which was an incredible statement, is that the Alter Rebbe says that anyone that has a brain in his skull is able to control himself. Meaning that he's able to recognize, he's able to think about it, what's good, what's right, why is his soul down in this world? And recognizing why is his soul down in this world, he's able to come up with the decision that I am going to do the right thing. That's it. I'm going to do the right thing. And every single person is able to do this. Right? It requires a little bit of effort. What kind of effort? Effort of thinking through, not just living life on automatic pilot, but actually thinking through, what am I doing here in this world? And after he thinks through, what am I doing here in this world, he can come to a conclusion that I want to do good. That's something that every single person could do. Then, however, he throws a ringer at us, a monkey wrench into the whole thing, and he says, however, a person who is a Rasha Be'emes is not capable. Why? Because of the punishment that he has, that he is not able to control himself. That his heart is in control, meaning that his nefesh bahamis is in control. And when the nefesh bahamis is in control, then he is riding life like a roller coaster, up and down and up and down and up and down and up and down, just like that. It's impossible, right? And that is actually a punishment for doing what? Because when he involves himself in doing the wrong things, by doing all different types of sins, what he is essentially doing is he is attracting himself to the klipa. And therefore the kedusha is leaving him. And when the holiness leaves him, it hovers above him. It doesn't go away completely, but it hovers above him. If it's not inside of him, he doesn't have the power anymore. He doesn't have the strength anymore. So therefore, as a punishment, which sounds more like not necessarily a punishment, but is more like a natural consequence of what winds up happening here, is that he loses control. We call it a punishment because it's very sad that this is what's going on. This is none of us want to deal with this. None of us want to have this type of situation, and we all, are trying our best never to get into that scenario, right? But then the Alter Rebbe comes and he concludes the whole chapter and the whole section with hope. What is the hope? The hope is that if a person finds himself in a difficult situation, he knows he can get out of it. How does he know he can get out of it? As long as he is alive in this world, he could do tshuva. And by doing tshuva, by returning to Hashem, he is able to wipe the slate clean, and he's able to start all over again. So now that's what we're up to. So let's continue. We're in Chav Gimel, right? And let's start with this line that says, Kamaymer Azal. Okay, the line starts with Im Lo Mi Shehu. That's about 10 lines down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, 9 lines down. We read through this yesterday, so we'll read through the first part very quickly, and then we'll focus on the part that we didn't do yet. It says like this, Kamaymer Azal. Shaharishayim heim bereshus libo, that the Rishayim, they are in the control of their hearts. Ve'ein libam bereshusam klal, they are not able to control themselves. Ve'zeh oynish, this is a punishment. Al gadol va'atzum avaynam, because of the essential and huge sins. V'lo dibra Torah b'meisim elu b'chayehem karuim meisim. And like it says, the Torah, when it says, we mentioned yesterday, David HaMelech says, right, lo ameisim yahaluka, that the dead people are not able to praise Hashem. It doesn't mean literally dead people. It means people that while they're still alive are called dead. Ki, why? Because it's impossible for the Rishayim to start to serve Hashem unless they do first tshuva al ha'avar, on the past, tchila, to begin with. Lishaber ha'klipos, to break the klipos. Shemesech mavdil, which is the curtain which is separating. Umechitza shel barzel, and the wall of iron. Hamafsekis beinam la'aviem shebashamayim, which is separating between them and their Father in heaven. Now, al yidei shviras libo umerirus, so through a person breaking his heart and feeling bitter. Notice how he uses the word bitter here. It's not depressed. He does not feel depressed. There's a very big difference in Jewish literature, in Hasidic literature, between someone who is depressed and someone who is bitter. Depressed is someone who all the pipelines are closed in him. He's not able to get up in the morning. What's the point of getting up in the morning? Bitterness is someone who's alive. He's in pain. He's upset by the things that he did, and therefore he can't go to sleep at night because he's so annoyed with himself that how could I have done that? I want to change. But he's alive, right? And that's what he's saying here. He's not depressed. He's bitter. Why is he bitter? Because of the sins that he made a bad mistake. He did silly things. Not he, I, we, all of us. That's the way it works. Like the Zohar says, Al Pasuk Zivchei Elokim Ruach Nishbara, that the sacrifices to Hashem is a Ruach Nishbara, V'leiv Nishbar, and a heart that is broken. So what does that mean? Shayidei leiv nishbar nishbara ruach hatuma desitra acher. So he has a very interesting taitcha, a very interesting translation here. Usually when we see this sentence, we think what it means is that we're breaking our heart. By breaking our heart, because we feel so bad, right, that we break also the ruach, the spirit inside of ourselves. But that's not how the Zohar explains it. The Zohar explains it in a way that by us reflecting on our lives and reflecting on the things that we've done, and it causes us to feel bitter and broken about the mistakes that we made, what happens is we're able to break the ruach, the spirit of the klipas, of the opposite side, of the negative side. That's what we need to do. By breaking the spirit of the klipas, that's what allows us to come back to life. That's what allows us to allow the kedusha to come back in. As long as that ruach, as long as that wall of iron is there, that wall of iron is there, there's nothing that can get through. No.
Until you come.
No. There's nothing that can get through. We can't do it. It's broke. We have to break our hearts, and by breaking our hearts, then the spirit of the klipa is not able to hold us. That's what we're trying to accomplish. Ayin Sham, Parashas Pinchas, Daf Reish Mem, etc., etc. Vehi bechinas tshuva tata. Now, Bechlal, there's two levels of tshuva here. The two levels of tshuva are what we call tshuva tata, the lower level of tshuva, and tshuva ilah, and the higher level of tshuva. Okay? Now, let me explain to you the difference between the lower level of tshuva and the higher level of tshuva. The lower level of tshuva means what? The lower level of tshuva means I'm in this world. My soul came down into this world. And what happened? I'm a soul in a nefesh bahamias, a godly soul in a nefesh bahamias, in a body, and I do a sin. So now my soul winds up being schlepped, being pulled into the klipas, as we're going to see. What tshuva tata is we want to bring our soul back to the way it was before we sinned. That's the basic concept of tshuva tata. That we were in a good spot, we became in a bad spot, and we want to bring ourselves back to a good spot. That's called tshuva tata. What's tshuva ilah? Tshuva tata, by the way, when he mentions tshuva here, there's a whole book called Igeres HaTshuva in Tanya. And tshuva tata is what we talk about, especially in chapters 6 and 7. At the end of chapter 8, we start talking about tshuva ilah. What's tshuva ilah? Tshuva ilah means that I reach a level of the way my soul was prior to my soul coming down into my body. It's a totally different level, totally different emotion, a totally different experience, right? So what we're going to see here is what enables us to righten out the situation? What enables us to fix up the situation? All we need to do is tshuva tata, not tshuva ilah. Of course, tshuva ilah would be amazing, but you can imagine the type of effort that requires for tshuva ilah versus tshuva tata. It's two totally different stories. And that's what we're going to say. Let's see it inside. Vehi bechinas tshuva tata. This is tshuva tata. Lahalois he tata lahakima minefilasa. So what does it mean? To lift up the hay, the lower hay, to bring it up before it was the way it was before it fell. Now, what is that referring to? In the name of Hashem, Yud, K, Vav, K, there are two hays. One hay, the first hay, is connected to the Yud, and the second hay, K, we call it, is connected to the Vav, right? Obviously, the first hay is a higher level, the second hay is a lower level. That's connected to the idea of Malchus, right? The sphere of Malchus. Now, we know also that in ourselves, and this is a bichlal, a whole idea of the way Chabad Hasidus talks about tshuva, is not only looking at it in terms of focusing on the me, that I did something wrong, and how could I have done something wrong, and I have to fix myself up, but instead looking at it in terms of Hashem has invested His spark inside of me. Hashem has invested His energy, His kayach, His ruach, His whatever you want to call it, inside of me. And when I'm going to go and do a sin, what am I doing? I'm taking Hashem's energy and sticking it into a dirty place. That's what I'm doing. So instead of just thinking to myself, oh, why do I want to do tshuva? Because I don't want to get punished. That is an idea in tshuva. And if that's going to help a person do tshuva, then so be it. That is amazing. And he should definitely do that. But there's a little bit of a different angle here that Chabad Hasidus is talking about. And that angle is, I can't believe that I did this to Hashem. That's a different story. It's like the example when I hurt myself. When I hurt myself in something that I did wrong, I feel bad about it. But if I hurt my best friend and I do something bad to him, I can't go to sleep at night. It's a very different energy. That's what we're talking about here. So what we're looking, when tshuva tata means, is to lift up the level of the bottom hay, the final hay in Hashem's name, to fix it up from and what I did to it. And that's what we're saying. Shenafla el achitzonim, because it fell down into the achitzonim, into the external forces. Shehu sod galus hashchina. This is the secret of the galus of the Shechina. What does it mean, the galus of the Shechina? It says, Kamay Marazal, galu la'edem Shechina imahem, that when the Yidden went out into galus after the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash, the Shechina went with them. So there's an idea that Hashem went with them. That's one concept. However, on a more of a deeper perspective is that when I am walking around, Hashem is with me right here. Hashem is a part of me. And when I do a sin, what I'm doing is I am taking Hashem and putting Him into the garbage can. That's what I'm doing, God forbid. Right? Because by me doing this sin, what I'm doing is because Hashem is part of me. And when I invest myself into whatever silly thing that I'm doing, what I'm doing essentially is putting Hashem into that garbage. That's what it means, that what happened here, that the galus of the Shechina, that it means that I am putting Hashem into galus, that I'm the one that's doing it. When a person spends time thinking like that at the end of the day, and he thinks through his day, and he thinks through what he did with his day, and he recognizes this, it's very painful, it's very embittering. And a person wants to change this. When he looks at himself, like I always say, right? You know, when a person, Bachar, comes to yeshiva the first time, and he wants to be a tzaddik, and he's like all excited, and he's ready to, wake up in the morning to go to Hasidus class, and he's ready to go, and the alarm starts going, and he reaches over and he says to himself, you know what? so I won't be 100% tzaddik. I'll be only a 98%, and he pushes snooze, right? And then the next day, when he again Hasidus class in the early morning, and he's like, oh, I won't be a 98%, so I'll be a 95%, and he pushes snooze again, and this goes on and on. When it's about me, so then okay, so I'm not the biggest tzaddik. Okay, so I didn't do all the right things. Whatever. I don't want to get punished for it. It's true. I want to get rewarded. It's also true. But okay, it's me. But when I realize that I'm letting the team down, and not just that I'm letting the team down, because we know that everyone is connected. Every single person, the truth is, in the whole entire world is connected. And when a person, whoever he is, does a good thing, then the whole world gets elevated. And when a person does a bad thing, then the opposite happens. When a person looks at life from that perspective, the world looks different. And his decisions look different. And therefore, he's ready at any moment to want to elevate everything around him. That's what he does. And now you take it a step further and you realize that it's not just about the team, it's about the coach. It's about Hashem himself that's coming down inside of me. And then when he looks at it from that perspective, he realizes, oh my gosh, I really made a mistake. I can't do this anymore. I have to do tshuva. I have to fix things up. I want to fix things up. And that's what he's saying here. When a person does something like an Edomite type of thing to do, something that's inappropriate, he draws down into there the spark of God, which is giving life to his nefesh, his ruach, his neshama, into his soul, which are enclosed within him. Nefesh Bahamias, which is in his Nefesh Bahamias, Ma'aklipa, that is coming from the Klipa, Shabalibo, which is in his heart, Shabachala Smoli. Hamoleches bo ba'oido Rasha, Mosheles be'ir katana. So while he is still a Rasha, when he hasn't done tshuva, it's running the show. And he's constantly pulling that godliness that's inside of him down. And he's lowering the whole team down. And his whole soul is stuck, is conquered, is in jail, so to speak. Right? That's the way it is. In this state of gullus, in this state of exile. Because the idea of exile is something the way it's not supposed to be. It's something that's weird. It's something that's inappropriate. Something that's not normal. Right? That's our problem. However, now he ends the whole section with a line of hope, and he says, "V'keshenishbar libo." But when a person thinks like this, because remember, all this whole chapter we've been talking about, and really for all the last 6 chapters we've been talking about, and really for all 17 chapters we've been talking about, it's all in the mind. It's what a person thinks, and when he develops in his own mind, he goes through a process of thinking through it. You want to call it meditating, fine. You want to call it contemplating, fine. You want to call it whatever you want to call it, but it has to be that he's thinking about what he's doing. He's a cup mensch that is thinking. He's not just living life on automatic pilot. He's thinking through what's going on. So what happens is when he thinks through what's going on, so then his heart is going to be broken. He's going to be, I can't believe this. Kishenishbar libo bekirbo, that he's going to break his heart in his inside. And that nishbara ruach hatuma, that broken heart is what breaks the spirit of the impurity and the sitra acher on the other side. That's what it happens. He's pardu, and then he's able to break out of it. That's what enables him to break out of this stronghold, this lock. It's almost like, like you can imagine, like someone has you in a headlock, right? This is what enables you to break out of that headlock. That's what happens. Next page, the last line of the chapter, Hikaman minifilaso bagam nitzvah kamoshakasu macher, and that's what enables him to get up from this falling state that he's in and to stand up and to change, and then he gets back to the way he's supposed to be, where he is in charge of himself, that he has a brain in his skull, that he is bereshus of himself, and he's able to go from there. And that's the goal. And that's what we have to do. Okay, so Mitzvah Hashem, we will continue with our ongoing voyage, our journey through Tanya, and when we start the next section with chapter 18.